We have our first black cat attending satsang. I'm sure this is very auspicious, and this will be the most important satsang ever. It's hard for me to say this, but I love you all so much. I wish you were all in Phoenix. I wish we were in an ashram together here. We need each other. I need you guys. The weather's starting to cool down here. It's in the low hundreds every day instead of 115 or 117. And we're still in the middle of summer. No, the end of summer. But you in the Netherlands are in the winter now. You wear winter jackets when you go on the tram. Not you, Kim, but other people. Maria's in the middle of summer, or no, you're in the middle of winter now, right? But you're on the equator, so it doesn't make much difference. Today I wanted to talk, to truly master the teachings, all of the teachings, and I doubt whether I'm anywhere near close. Takes most of a lifetime because the paths are not linear. There's always diverging points. There's so many different things you can learn about yourself and the nature of reality by just endless studying of yourself and studying of a teacher. Like I use the analogy a lot of times of the spiritual mansion that you all are, and that most dwell in only a very few rooms within that mansion. One of the first things that you learn about is the total emptiness, without even the slightest trace of mind or self. And that's what I felt with Robert in 1995 when he left. Total emptiness, the void. Not even the slightest touch of mind or of existing even. And then learning that consciousness itself is a freak show. It's not real. We just observe it, and we are beyond consciousness. Then there's the awakening to the manifest self, the awakening to the divine within that comes from love. And then there's a constant story throughout of don't be captured by words, by concepts, by stories. I'd like to talk to you a little about that tonight, this morning. I talk about, and this is a term invented by Angela, living in the mundane world of working at a job, paying rent, taking care of sick animals, trying to find a right apartment or buy a house, looking for a better job, thinking about what's to be eaten tomorrow when we go shopping. And most of us live in this world. It's the world that most other people live in too. The world of the mundane. The world of being an isolated human being, living with parents that don't understand you, and you don't understand yourself where you're going, what you want. Or having just escaped a horrendous life history and now living in freedom or relative freedom, or of passing his PhD examination, maybe. How long does it take for the results to come in, Max?
Oh, I already know I passed. Everything fine.
Everything's fine. Good. You're
Yes.
free then. You're free.
Well, certain kind of freedom.
Right. But I wanted to talk to you today about practical magic. Escaping from the mundane means first you have to escape from concepts, because the mundane is a series of thousands of interconnecting concepts, which we call existence, the world. It's different slightly for everybody, but they're usual overwhelming concepts that play throughout. The concepts of everyday life and what I have to do to maintain everyday life keeps some people very, very busy. I have to have a job or 2 jobs to pay the rent. There's this and that. There's the pain in my back. There's feeling exhausted from work, overwhelmed by work because of the stress of deadlines and so forth. And you don't realize it, but you're living in your minds. You're not really feeling what you're living. A feeling may come up, and it feels overwhelming. It's an old feeling that you've felt 100 times. Maybe depression, fear, or anger. And you run away from it, get distracted into something or other. But what I tell you is don't run away. Look at the feeling and feel that feeling. It's probably quite different from what you thought it was. It's just that you're used to immediately labeling sensations as feelings or as something that they're not. When you closely look at some internal event, whether it's a feeling in your body or an arising emotion, instead of labeling it, just feel it. Relax. Let that emotion come close to you. Let that emotion come into you. And it will change. I don't know how it will change for you, but it will change. And if you look a little more, it'll change more. Until eventually it has no form and it's disappeared. Or else another thing can happen. When you look at a negative emotion and you feel it very closely, it explodes, disintegrates, and you're filled with an enormous amount of sweet energy, blissful energy, pervading your entire sense of being. But the mundane world is made out of these thousands of concepts about who we are, what we are, where we are, and what we have to do, what we have to plan for, what we have to prepare for, what clothes to wear to an interview. And these concepts and the way we see the world are shaped by these concepts of everyday life, become the totality of our existence, except for dreams or reading a spiritual book that seems to uplift us out of the mundane for a moment. But when we learn the fundamental truth that words and concepts and stories shape reality, they are not reality. The conventional life, the mundane life, is not real. It's hundreds of stories wrapped together in a bundle that we live with every day and carry around us every day, which dictates what we do and our behaviors. The fundamental thing is to learn that the word is not the reality. Or, as Korzybski said, the map is not the terrain. Don't confuse the two. You can talk about worshiping God, and it may get a little feeling going into you, but it's really different from actually worshiping God. You can say, I love you, but it's just a concept, it's just a word. How does it actually feel, this love of yours for the other? What are the elements in there? How do you feel it in your heart? How do you feel it in your gut? How do you feel it in your face, your head, your whole body? What about devotion? You think you know what that is? But what does it mean to you in terms of experience? Say devotion to the Guru, devotion to your spouse, devotion to your children, devotion to God. What does it feel like? Is your body relaxed? Is it tense? Are certain muscles tense? What does your heart feel like? Does it feel open or like a lump that's burning? All of these things you have to look at very minutely to really know, to directly intuit what you mean by the term devotion or love. If you really know it and look at it, it changes. It's different from the definitions and words and stories of the mundane world. There are several ways to approach seeing reality without the story, without the concepts, without the web of thought that weaves this into a story or into the mundane reality. One is to just try to look at things in the external world as closely as possible without labeling. You try to sit with a silent mind and watch the things around you. And if you're lucky, when you're sitting long enough, you go into a kind of samadhi and you become the things around you. Whether it's a crawling bird, a jet flying overhead, the wind in the trees, the sound of water dripping, the sound of a waterfall. You become that. Then your world begins to change. You say, wow, the external world is not how I thought it to be. It's far vaster and more magic and richer than my words and stories about the mundane world can ever make it. So with silent mind, you begin looking around. As Sun Sanim says, become dumb as a rock. Don't label things. And if somebody asks you a question, don't answer with words. Think a way of responding without words. A dance, a posture, a finger, some way to convey meaning to the other person about what the answer to his question was. Get out of words. You know, I still buy books, but I don't know why. I can't read more than 3 or 4 pages out of any book before I feel like I'm getting out of myself reading this book. What kind of bullshit am I reading when I can directly feel truth in myself? So, we learn this one way to see reality without words. But this is not really escaping. This is still practice. Because immediately, as soon as we stop practicing, we're back in the stories that make up mundane reality. What we have to be deeply convinced of is words are a false reality. Talking to ourselves about how to plan a house to be built is just wasting a lot of time in your mind. Unless you're going to build that tomorrow. Speculating what a better job would be like and how you'd find it without making efforts to find it. It's just wasting your time in imagination and speculation. You have to understand that the mundane world is a dream. And by that, I mean it's a construct of thousands of ideas you have about yourself and the world that shapes how you behave. You can see the world directly if you're dumb as a rock, but it's hard to do that. You can feel inside yourself and feel emotions rising. But to let go of your idea that this is a kind of emotion you have a difficult time dealing with is to miss actually seeing what it's like. Although the emotion may have origin in a certain situation 20 years ago, you are not that person now. If you actually felt that feeling now, it would be very different than the traumatic situation that caused the thought structure 10 or 20 years ago. So I urge people to sit in my chair, this one right here, or something similar, doing nothing except feeling within your body, your sense of existence, your energy body, and watch what comes up. If an emotion comes up, allow yourself to learn how to get into the emotion by opening your heart and letting that emotion come in and feeling what it really is. And I guarantee you, in most cases, it will change. It's not what you thought it was. Thoughts are stable, are constant. Reality is not. The outer world is changing, moment by moment. The inner world is changing even more quickly. The same emotion, when pursued by feeling, can change into 3 or 4 different emotions in a period of time, and you may not be able to find words to express what it has become. Because now you're in a world that's different from the mundane. You're in your true world. which feels like a different dimension, where things are magical, where reality is not solid. Reality changes. Love can become deep love. Love can become extreme devotion. Love can become complete surrender. Or love can completely dry up and dissipate in 5 moments when somebody directs an angry remark at you. Everything changes, changes, changes. Now, the important principle here is that Shakti, the life force, tends to follow stories in a human's life. There is the individual Shakti, which is embodied into your body as you, as Angela or Spencer or Maria or Michael or Ken. And then there's Shakti in the external world. That is what Robert calls the power that knows the way, which is running the show, so to speak. It's the active element of existence as opposed to the observing element of Shiva. Shiva observes, Shakti creates. But you've trapped Shakti into your mundane world, and all the energy sustains that mundane world around you. But if you learn that those concepts you have about the mundane world are just concepts, you free Shakti from reinforcing that thought form in you. And when you can let go of concepts altogether and see the world differently, still apparently mundane, but without the stories, things begin to change. You begin to change. I want to read you something that Tonita sent me as an email. And this encapsulates it. She says, for you, for sure you must be a warlock to intuit that this idea of stories and how you can manipulate stories is exactly what is beginning to open up for me. Freedom from stories, freedom to create stories. Dreams started coming last week. Subtle knowings from another dimension which are being accessed. The dimension where life becomes malleable, the malleable zone. In that zone, our judgments and perceptions, conversations actually influence what is, because we are now sitting as what is, and seeing has now become a creative act because there is now some spiritual force behind it. Mindcraft does not interfere with our innate creative power anymore. Dreams or knowingness come, wait a second. Dreams or knowingness come in the symbol of reading tea leaves, where the act of reading a situation is the same as prophecy or command, like Christ's cursing or blessing. It is an act that enables. In a dream, the implication for everyone and everything were clear: to be as kind and loving as possible in every interpretation I make, every story I'm tempted to tell. This is real responsibility. To live in this magical world consciously is what I have been waiting, working, aspiring towards my whole life. What is she talking about? When you see, when you can actually intuit directly that Shakti follows storylines, and it's the stories that maintain us in the mundane life, and we start looking at those concepts that make up our perceiving of ourselves in this mundane life, and they dissipate, one by one, you begin to free yourself energetically from the mundane world and rise into a new dimension. A dimension where you begin to tell stories that actually affect how you perceive the world, how others perceive you, and how things operate in the world. You become, so to speak, a sorcerer, a witch, a magician. All that you have to do is imagine a story that's different from the one that you think you have now. Imagine it. Feel what it's like. And know that if Shakti likes the story because you like it, it helps to make it so. Angela had a story of escaping from bad places. And she would do anything to get that story correct. She followed the energy of that story of escaping a bad parental situation and another living situation. And she did it. She did it. She did it. And now she's beginning to live in a far more magical world where she's a different person with different energies. Angela, tell us something about what happened, just briefly, as an overview. Let us know what happened and where you are now.
Well, I created my life as a prison from a story. And the story was that I had to save other people from their suffering. And my whole life has been two situations where I've been doing this. And now I escaped both of them. And the second one I escaped just a week ago. And ever since, my whole energy feels completely different. It's just, I cannot define myself anymore. And my energy is so light. And I just feel so free and so light in my energy that it's like I experience myself for the first time. And for the first time, I also realized that how much I have been given to other people because of a concept of being a good person and serving others. I've given like my whole being, even like almost the air that I breathe. Like, yeah, this is it actually what's happening. Every morning when I wake up, I'm just, I just cannot define myself. I cannot find myself as who I've been up to now because my whole personal story fell off me. Just dropped.
How do you feel now? Describe it as best you can with words and concept.
I feel, yeah, like I said before, I feel as though my energy, like the energy of my body as well as, yeah, this is really a concept word. My whole being is just light. not as in, yeah, as in light energy. It's like a heaviness fell completely off me. I feel alive and light, and without really knowing what I am or where to go.
What do you feel this second?
An aliveness and burning in my chest because of telling you guys about this.
What else?
Right now, it's like I'm glowing. That's what I feel. My body feels very tired, and at the same time, I'm glowing from the chest and around my body, like a warm glow, which feels joyful and alive.
Thank you. Verena's in her office. Joining late. Are you working today? So this concept of transcending the mundane world means letting go of all the thousands of concepts that keep you trapped in whatever job you're in, whatever relationship you're in that's not working, whatever responsibility you have. And I'm asking you to do what we call, or psychologists call, reframing. Look at the feelings. Are the feelings really the same as what the story you give to them? Is that love you feel really love? Is that fear you feel really fear? Is that depression you feel really as deep as you think it is, and that if you dare feel it, you're going to be overtaken by it and never be able to come out of it again? These are stories that prevent you from integrating all the lost parts of yourself, to feeling yourself fully and in a different way from the mundane world. When you're in the mundane world, no matter how nice it feels, you always feel trapped. And you're always looking for escape. But when you can feel directly, the feelings that claw at you and demand that you do something, or they claw at you and you run away into diverting yourself into another workshop or another relationship or another job, and really feel what those feelings are like, what the energies are like. Also, as long as you get this deep in yourself, you will begin to feel Shakti. You will feel Shakti in your own life as energies moving within your body. Where they start, it doesn't matter. Sometimes it starts in the heart, sometimes in the womb, sometimes in the genitals, sometimes in the third eye. For me, it started in the third eye. So I was able to see the emptiness of reality pretty quickly. But you have to learn how to create stories. Once you can feel how the stories that keep you in the mundane world actually form that mundane world, are ties to that mundane world, are anchors to that mundane world, you can begin to examine your mundane world, the assumptions you have, and gradually break free one by one. And the Shakti roars into you, fills out your personality with more energy so that you can break free. Or, even more significantly, you can learn to create stories that have a different outcome, a different feel, to counteract your mundane stories. And so to speak, you become a magician. You can create in others by your feelings, by your stories, similar feelings or opposing feelings. It's really strange, but you begin to be telepathic with other people. You can tell when they get up in the morning. You can tell when they're thinking about you. You can tell when they're mad at you. You can feel it. And then you begin to become a storyteller. Max refers to it as lying, but I prefer to call it a story. I'm a storyteller. I'll be watching television and they'll show something happening in the 4th century in a war zone. In the middle of it, people are getting killed. And I'll say something like, well, we used to use those when we were battling in Cleveland. Some people laugh. They don't know what I'm getting, but I'm changing the mood of the moment. It's all about changing emotions, changing moods, changing your own moods, or helping somebody to fall in love with you because you love them. You want to be with them. You want to possess them. You want them to want to possess you. You want to find people like you that you can love and respect, to share lives with, to share spirituality with. I think most of you feel that where you are is not very conducive to your spiritual life. All day long, you're doing shit you don't want to do because you have to in that mundane world. But when you become a sorcerer or a sorceress, that begins to change because you become a creator now. Vasilina can actually control people now after she learns how to free herself from her mundane world and see what the feelings really are. Instead of always feeling a victim, that she can't change it, she has no power over it. I wish Tonita were here today so she could talk about her freeing herself from stories. The only other one that I know has some inkling of what I'm talking about, because I don't talk to many of you about the actual progress you're making. We don't do face-to-face. Is Verena. Are you escaping from your mundane reality in any way, Verena?
Sometimes, like multiple times a day, and then I get sucked right back in.
How do you do it?
How do I escape?
How do you try to escape?
I don't know that I try to. It's like when I go far enough into the sensation, my mind turns off and something shifts. Like it's so much that I can't hold the story anymore.
Good, very good.
It like burns it off. But then
Can
it
you
goes
create
back.
stories to mesmerize and change others? You can practice on your daughter.
That doesn't feel right. I prefer my other victims. I do it a little bit by accident. I've never actually gone into something and said, okay, now I'm going to create this story. But where, like what I'm feeling seems like it influences other people sometimes. Can you give me an example of creating a story? Like something we could practice?
Oh, it's hard to. It's kind of a spontaneous thing. It just arises. Shakti sort of tells a story inside of you, and you have to convey it, and it's situation dependent. I would just be grasping straws to try to create a situation where I could tell a story, but assume you're talking to somebody. This is a little different, but it's the same. And that person says, right now I feel a great tightness in my heart. And I say, why? And she'll say, I feel depression coming. It's vast. It's huge. And it's moving closer and closer to me, and I'm afraid of it. And I say, are you sure it's depression? Can it be something else? Are you sure? And that person will pause for a moment and say, after just a minute, you're right, it's changing. It's changing into like an animal. It feels like a cat in my gut that's crying to get out. And I'll say, are you sure? Look at it again. And the person will say, now it feels like a gentle breeze blowing through me. It's totally disappeared except for the gentle breeze. That's the antidote part, not the creating part. But it's something like that. You tell a story like to a child who's frightened of something coming. Maybe it's somebody outside making noise or something like that. You tell that child a story. That's really Santa Claus coming to check what you want for Christmas. Oh boy. And it's changed. Or you tell somebody, I love you. And something happens in them. If the Shakti is right when you say, I love you, they'll feel it inside of themselves as a gentle wind blowing through their heart and opening up their heart. And then they'll have responding emotions, whether of fear or love, responding love. If you say, I love you to some people, they'll run out of the room as quickly as possible because they don't want to have anything to do with love or being possessed or entering a relationship that becomes another mundane world. They'd rather be free of any kind of stories like that and live in a rather bleak and unfriendly place with very little richness, emotional richness or intellectual richness or energies. Or you can say, Varina, there is an unimaginable world just outside of your grasp. You're already touching it. You're already touching it. But you still have so much belief in the narrative of your life that you're unable to escape it and go into that new dimension. And to feel the love of Shakti for you as you leave the narrative and can go into one of self-love and self-caring. What did you feel when I said that?
Joy, kind of sparkly stuff up my chest.
You are quite beautiful, Marina, my dear. How do you feel? What do you feel?
More light, kind of swirling up.
Light, like visible light?
I mean, my eyes are open. I'm not seeing it with my eyes, but it's like a very strong, like internal
Light
visual.
energy. Okay, if you close your eyes, is it light inside?
If I close my eyes, it's more like a field of light. And it's not like I can see it in my body right now.
What's the color of the light?
More red than usual right now.
Dark red or light red? Close your eyes. What do you feel?
Like a lot of, it's hot. Kind of, it's like, and then like soft.
What? I didn't hear
In my
that.
belly and in my legs.
I didn't hear that.
Soft sensations in my belly and in my little sharper and lower is smoother.
Do the sensations change from moment to moment while you're watching them or
Yeah.
feeling them?
Yeah.
So there's really no truth to anything you would say about them in any particular moment in time, because even before you finish labeling it, it would be different.
Yeah, that's true. Unless I say something very general.
Yeah. Very mundane. Thank you, Marina. Go back to your office. There's a whole world of magic that opens up after you begin feeling Shakti within you. You realize the emptiness of all words and concepts, that the map is not the terrain, the words and concepts and stories are not you, that you start to become a magician. When you interact with people, you change them. You change yourself in the process of changing them. You become a unity in a sense. And each person, you're a different unity with. You can go from person to person and become a different being, each person you touch and that you communicate with from heart to heart. You can cure people of physical ills with the energies. You just have to learn how. Read the quantum touch books, like the first one, The Power to Heal, by Richard Gordon. And already you begin to see the world is not the way you thought it was. There is a mystical element to it, a magical element to it. For example, there's another thing. I was a physics major for a long period of time as an undergraduate. I learned all the math and doing all the calculations and all this sort of stuff. But to me, it was a construct of mathematics with words added on, ideas added on, that formed a conceptual whole, with math being the basis for it, or me being a way to express it in a mathematical way. But I really didn't believe the stories. I couldn't see an atom. I couldn't see an electron. At that time, they couldn't see atoms with different kinds of microscopes, electronic microscopes. Now they claim they can, but all I see is a little blurb and they say it's an atom, but that's not an atom to me. I just didn't believe physics. And when I had practical physics laboratories, nothing ever worked for me because I really didn't believe the theory. There's one classic experiment is to take a 22 and fire it into a block container that's suspended as a pendulum. And if you know the weight of the bullet, the velocity of the bullet, and when the bullet hits how high the box rises, you can tell how much kinetic energy was in that bullet. It never worked for me. My data points were scattered all over. It could have been like a BB energy up to that of a recoilless rifle. It was never, ever accurate. And my one theoretical physical teacher who I admired, Dr. Weinberg, said that when he went by laboratories, it shut down any kind of expectation of accuracy of the experiment. He actually destroyed the equipment. So he lived in an ethereal realm where he never had to apply the concepts that he was creating to the real world in any way. And the world responded by not working in his environment. Just like my experiments didn't work for me, no matter how carefully I tried to do them. And I didn't ever try to do them too carefully because I didn't care. There's some people, if you don't believe in what you're doing, Maria, you can go to college for 1,000 years and never make a successful life out of that. You should tell that to your father, because you just don't give a shit about college. I love you all. I wish you were all here with me in my house, so we could stay up together at night and just bullshit. Tell spiritual stories. I'll tell stories about Muktananda and Robert. And you'll look at me with these loving eyes thinking that I'm the light of God. And I'll let you feel that for a while until I blow a fart very loudly right in front of you. Or burp in the middle of a sentence like Angela does. Or otherwise try to end the story in the admiration and get down to earth. We'll have pizza together. We'll watch movies together. We'll have meditations. And we'll learn how to worship each other, to love each other with all due respect and complete devotion, because you're family. And you feel finally that you're in a world where you belong, because everybody else is as weird as you are. Where people think like you and feel like you, and feel energies like you do, and can take control of the world using energies. Maybe in little ways, maybe in bigger ways. Are there any questions, any remarks, any criticisms?
Hello, Ed. It's Mark's turn.
Yeah.
I'm kind of at a loss for words because at times I'm in such a profound place that it's like everything Robert talks about, it's everything you talk about, it's what's Nisargadatta. I just find myself like through the open door into the freedom of the sublime and exquisite self. And it's just like what I've been describing, except it's getting even more coherent and even more sublime and exquisite. I am seeing interactions with people in my life. They're starting to come to me and talk about spiritual matters or ask me if I'm spiritual. And people share sweetness with me as well. You know, customers share their admiration for the service I gave, for the stuff I communicated, and they communicate sweetness back to me. A couple more remarks. I've been rereading the Nisargadatta Gita, which I highly recommend to everyone who feels inclined. And some passages which formerly didn't really mean that much to me suddenly speaks to me. So just a couple quotes. One was, if you feel a reverence and a love for the I am, then surely you've understood the teaching, something like that. And I go, yeah, of course. Like, I know what he's talking about. I do feel that. And the other one has to do with the lack of questioning. If there's a lack of questioning, then you're getting it. I just feel like I'm following my true self, and it's the self I've always known in different slices and aspects and intervals, but now it's ongoing. Like I go through the door and I'm there, and it's very, very profound.
What did you think about what I was talking about today, the practical applications of that?
Yeah, so what I would like to be is like a beacon of spiritual energy for those I interact with. I'd like those that are sensitive to sense it in me, and for me to be able to inspire them and guide them towards their own source. That's what like comes to me right now. Ultimately, I'm going to write a large article, which will probably take a month to write.
You should wear a bishop's hat. People will be more attracted to you instantaneously because you've got a story on your head already.
Well, the main thing is abiding in the true self, in what you call Shakti. It's the most exquisite and sublime thing, and it's the most me that I've ever experienced, and everything else is like so trite and two-dimensional and throwaway compared to that.
True. But there is a place even before Shakti and before emptiness, the field out of which everything comes, including Shakti and the emptiness. And I think you know about that already.
Yeah, I definitely abide in there at times, and it's getting stronger and it's getting more solid in me. So thank you.
Do you feel how resting in that density within you, that field, how you can actually be able to change things in the field? Are you becoming it?
Well, it definitely feels like the most real thing that I've experienced. It's definitely the place I want to abide in, and I want to get to know. But not yet. I think that's gonna come. I think I'm just starting.
Okay, great. Anybody else? Any of the many Steves here today want to say something? How many Steves? Three Stevens. Or Steves. You don't have to say anything. Does Maria want to say something? She's very animated. Does Vijay want to say something?
Ed, I feel a lot of energy. My only question is how I can sustain that. I mean, how I can keep experiencing it, go deep inside of that.
Don't want to go too deep, because then you'll get into emptiness and it won't be so important to you. Stay with the
Oh,
Shakti, just feeling the Shakti, especially in your heart, in your belly, in your genitals, your throat, the third eye. Imagine them as a chakras and feel the energy going from chakra to chakra. And then
I,
just feel the energy.
I feel the throat body as kind of vibration, like electrical vibration, sort of like when you touch the power and you have certain sense of vibration there. That
Yes.
kind of vibration, but it's little finer than that.
It's what? Yes, it
It's
is.
little finer than that.
Yes, it is finer than that. When you're feeling the energies very, very strongly, your whole body may begin to quake and convulse because the power is so great. But yes, generally it's finer than the electricity you used to feel or a mechanical vibration of being tired. When you're very tired, your muscles tend to vibrate too. But it's a pleasurable vibration or no sensation whatsoever as opposed to an unpleasant one.
Yeah, it's not unpleasant. There is no pleasure there. It's just there.
It's there. Give it time. Just stay with it as much as possible. Relax and feel the energies. Feel the origin of the energy. Where does it come from? Which chakras are producing energies? Have you been able to get your genitals to have energies, to bring the sexual energy into and energize your body with your sexual energy?
That's one thing I want to avoid. That's my whole life problem. And I just don't want to go there.
Oh, go there. Visit your balls.
Okay.
Visit your penis. Visit your asshole. They're all tingling, waiting for you to discover them, and waiting for that tingling and explosion of energy down there to be shared with the rest of your body. That's where the Kundalini comes from too. Sex is so important because it's one of the major things that people think about and feel about, or avoid feeling about and repress. There's nothing more interesting than sex or magic, as somebody told me. Feel your sexuality. Feel your lust for others. Take a look at a beautiful woman or a beautiful man, and what do you feel? Do you feel something in your genitals? Does your penis fill with blood? Does your vagina get wet? You got to be raw. This is real life. And you can't cut yourself off from something that's so important to humanity, which is their genitals and children and procreation and that energy to procreate. That's why God gave you feeling down there for procreation of the race. So it's built into you very strongly. It's strongly wired into you. And until you can know it in its rawest, most powerful form, you can't use that energy to become enlightened. But when you can know it fully, without sexuality, without actual physical sex, or during physical sex, taking that energy and making your body filled with light and energy and power and bliss.
Thank you all for your help. Thank you, Ed.
You're welcome, Vijay. Anybody else? I'm going to post later on today a 25-minute segment of Angela and I working through about labels and stories. She gave me permission to do it. I think it's valuable. Are there any other questions? Are there any comments? Somebody raised their hand. Oh yeah, Padma.
I might actually take up your offer on visiting you at your place and then having pizza and watching movies.
Yeah, sure. Everybody seems to come in September and October because I guess the airfares are lowest at that time of the year. We can do it next year, a whole month. Then we'll have an ashram. Then we could do it all the time.
That would be nice.
It would be nice.
Yeah. Are there hotels like close by?
What?
Are there hotels close by?
People
the
usually
place?
stay at my house. We just crowd people into the house. There's
Awesome.
3 bedrooms here, so we could
Okay.
have about 27 people staying here.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I really plan to visit you then.
Okay,
Okay. Thank you.
you're welcome. Anybody else? Okay. I love you all. I'm going to play a chant and then we'll go. Stay with me if you can and listen to the chant. And then we'll go. And then I'll see you on Thursday. And once again, I can't tell you how much I love you. I wish you were all here. Except for Michael. That's a joke, Michael. Let me get the chant going. Ah.